Podsmashers of the internet, and welcome to another episode of
Podsmash,
where gaming goes to grab a beer. We are your hosts,
Penguin and Termite.
I am Penguin.
You are not Penguin. I am Penguin.
I am Termite.
Ooh, a nice little test for both me.
You like that?
It would have been really funny if I go, and I am Termite.
That's what I was going for. I really tried.
Identity theft is real, Jim.
We are a weekly video game podcast smashing together ideas that you care about with video games over a beer.
Yes, and tonight we're doing a deep dive, our series of deep dives. We haven't done one in forever. They are all about genres, different genre deep dives. And today we are deep diving into the large pool of ARPGs, which is a very large pool indeed, because RPGs are an already difficult to almost too broad of a genre, and then ARPGs are probably the broadest of that subcategory.
Yep.
So,
and ARPG stands for
action RPGs,
Yeah.
action role-playing games, to be specific.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll get into all the definitions and all the intricacies of it in a bit, but first we'll talk about what beer we're drinking.
We are
briefly.
drinking Younglings.
Linglings.
Yingling traditional lager. Apparently America's oldest brewery. I don't know. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But it's an original amber beer. It's just a regular
It's
lager,
good.
guys.
It's just good. I got a big old case of it for my son's birthday, and we're going to be drinking through it for a few weeks.
Mm-hmm. I still have some Ice House in the fridge, too. We can mix it up.
I know, you say every single recording. We should have both. We should have Yingling and Ice House.
What?
And mix them together into it.
Ooh, a black and tan?
I love it. It'd be more like a light gray and light brown.
Yep. Or a
we'll
spray
call
tan.
it what do they call gray water?
Ooh.
You know what gray water is?
No, I don't. What's that?
It's it's like in septic systems.
Ew.
It's just the liquid of all the liquids combined. Yuck. They call it gray water.
Ew.
Yeah, so sewage basically.
Ew. Worse than sewage. Cool. So there's some
Make some gray water.
There's some happenings and some goings on in the gaming industry.
We have some things to talk about.
We're going to go through.
The first one I want to talk about was Sakurai confirmed in an interview. He did another Famitsu interview, and he confirmed that the Fighters Pass 2 will be the last addition to Smash Ultimate. And so once Fighters Pass 2, once the 6 characters of Fighters Pass 2 are released, then Smash Ultimate is, quote, over. And just means there's going to be no addition, so the game will be a complete thing.
It's all running through, what? Every character is going to be released by February of 2020.
I want to say it's 2022. I think they gave 2 years. Yeah.
And it makes sense. So the game came out in 2018, so it gives you almost a 3.5 year kind of push of DLC. Mm-hmm. Keep trickling it out.
11 characters in addition to the 80 existing characters on the roster. That's more than anybody could have.
And the caliber of the DLC characters has been ratcheted up from the Wii U ones.
Oh, yeah.
You know, we got Bayonetta and Ryu.
Bayonetta was Bayonetta, Ryu. Those are the most like third party. From the Wii U game. Chrom wasn't in the Wii U one.
Yeah, he was DLC.
Corrin.
Thank you. That's it. The Dragon Lance guy. Yeah. Thank you. Chrom was a new character with Ultimate. You're right. Mm-hmm. The quality or like the level of like detail or like innovation has kind of been like increased by a different level of with Smash Ultimate. So 11 characters at a higher caliber than what we have ever seen. Yeah, it's pretty awesome. I think it's good. I'm okay with it.
Those 6 characters, I'm okay with it too. Absolutely, 11 additional characters.
As long as they're not more Fire Emblem characters, I'm okay.
Exactly.
No mas.
And I think that if you think that Byleth edition kicked up a crap storm, then just wait till number 11 is announced. It doesn't matter who it is. It doesn't matter if it's something that everybody has wanted for forever. Some fans are going to be like, no, it's the last one. How dare you?
No,
but it's always drama. It was drama with Bayonetta. It'll be drama with number 11. But I'm still looking forward to it. 6 more characters.
Yeah.
And,
is it 6 more or 5 more?
6.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because we had 5, because it's going to be 11 DLC characters from Joker to the last one.
What about Piranha Plant?
Piranha Plant was an extra, but I guess you're right. 12 total DLC characters. Mm-hmm. From Piranha Plant on to whoever the 11th one or the 12th one will be. That's
okay.
Yeah,
sweet.
So
all right,
it'll be a fun couple of years speculating and finding out who.
When's the next one?
Who knows? Probably we'll get it. My guess would be they'll do it for the anniversary, the E3 anniversary, second E3.
Yeah.
It would be the anniversary, it would be the 2-year anniversary of Everyone Is Here, would be this year's E3. So that's my guess. But we'll see. Who knows? There's supposedly going to be a Nintendo Direct in a couple of days.
There's one tomorrow for Animal Crossing.
There's one for tomorrow for Animal Crossing, and supposedly there's one on the 27th, I think, because Platinum Games
they're supposed to
said they have a big announcement. Yeah.
You think it'll be Nintendo-centric?
We'll see. I'm personally hoping for any details on Bayonetta 3.
They tweeted that picture of a 4. Remember that?
Oh, interesting.
It was a long while. It was like the very first hint at something new and everyone on the internet ran nuts with just a 4.
I'm, for one, hoping for a Nintendo Direct, and I'm hoping for news on Bayonetta 3. Because Metroid, has just been kind of...
being developed,
development.
And you remember that Astral Chain had just come out. Was that actually Bayonetta 3 was announced before Astral Chain had come out?
Yeah.
Astral Chain. I can't talk. And they're both developed by Platinum Games. So, what is their bandwidth?
Right, yeah.
Anyway, we digress.
Yep. I wanted to talk about GameStop.
I saw a bunch of articles regarding GameStop about how the employees, managers, and stuff have reached out to some of the journalist publication websites like Polygon, IGN, etc. And we're talking bad about the morale and
upper management seems to be writing.
Going on?
Yeah, I mean, other than what most of this is unsubstantiated in the sense that there's been no official announcements by GameStop, but apparently a lot of employees are getting really disgruntled because the company seems to be kind of imploding in on itself, and by that I mean upper management seems to be getting desperate.
Okay.
And it's twofold. On the one, internally, they are riding their employees very hard.
Yeah.
And, sell. They're cracking down on things like the whole spiel that they give you of, do you want this? Do you want a strategy guide? Do you want this swag? Yeah. They're cracking down on upselling, basically. And they're just being very, it's a very, corporate pressure kind of culture. They're very quick to fire people because if they fire people, that actually just helps their bottom line at this point. So they cut down on employees. So they're kind of looking for excuses to fire people is more or less what's happening. So the culture is becoming very toxic internally. Externally, they're trying to control the narrative as much as possible, which unfortunately results in the Streisand effect, because by trying to silence people, they actually are making a bigger story of it, because once it gets out, and of course people are going to talk, and once it gets out, people are going to suddenly be like, why are you silencing your employees like that? The biggest story I've heard in regards to that is there's a particular YouTuber who all he does is make videos. His name's Camelot numbers, and all he does is make videos on GameStop, and they're terrible company.
Oh wow! Does he work for GameStop?
He used to work for GameStop, and so he basically they've singled GameStop. He's gotten so loud that GameStop has singled him out, and anybody who even mentions or if they catch you watching his videos and you're a GameStop employee, they'll fire you. Wow. Supposedly. But current GameStop employees have reached out to tell him that's the case. Someone's got fired because they watched his videos. Yeah. It's so it's
I mean, the writing's on the wall. They closed how many thousands of stores? Yeah. They lost $600 million some dollars.
They have more or less said that their business is riding on the
next gen
sale of the next gen consoles, which could be interesting depending on how this year goes with a certain bug that's going around.
Oh, the coronavirus, right?
Yeah. If and you and I had talked about this, because if the coronavirus delays the consoles by till next year, GameStop's
which is probably not going to happen.
But
what will happen is a constraint on supply, which will also hurt GameStop because they can't move the units through. Therefore, people won't trade in their old stuff for the new stuff, and they won't sell any used copies of the new stuff. And they've more or less said they are relying. They didn't say it this way because they said we think we'll get a big bump in holiday sales because of the next gen, and it makes sense.
But what that means, the translation of that is, we're really relying on holiday sales to survive as a company. I expect they're going to close. I would expect another couple thousand stores to close.
They recently
by
switched
next year.
CEOs, and the guy who was the CEO that recently started, I think it was 9 months ago. It was pretty new. He came off of a company that was the parent company of Best Buy and some other big retail stores, and there was this announcement that they were going to make these new store formats that emphasize hanging out and esports and retro consoles being hooked up and the ability to play and like buy retro games in the store, which you can't do right now, but you can buy them online and you can trade them in. And so I don't know what's happening with that.
It's my question is it a situation of too little too late? You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, can they pull it off?
Yep.
And if they can, will it save them? I don't know. They needed to adapt 5 years ago. They needed to adapt 10 years ago, and they staunchly refused to. And retail has been dying for the last 2 decades.
Yeah.
And
the rise of digital games has just ate their lunch.
Yeah. And in my mind, I'm like, my mind is like, no bailouts, dudes. Like, you failed to adapt. Business ate you. Right. You're done.
Yeah. Blockbuster. Mm-hmm. Hollywood Video, any of those games.
Even other retailers like Best Buy, they adapted by they built their business on the idea of we're not going to have one single thing that we sell. We're going to sell multiple different varieties of electronics, and we're going to have like cell phone providers, and we're going to sell Geek Squad. They have a diverse portfolio of business of products and services.
Yep.
And even they're getting hurt.
Yeah, they are
by Amazon and digital shopping. So, but at least they're going to get hit less by this particular problem because they have a diverse range of products and services.
Yeah, it's sad. I mean, a lot of people hate going to GameStop. They don't like trading in stuff anymore. They'd rather sell it on eBay because they get hounded to death when they walk in for, why don't you trade in your cell phone? Apparently one of the employees actually traded their own cell phone in so they wouldn't get fired.
Oh my gosh.
They're pushing the tech trade-ins in so hard. That's what I think it was on
I've heard that's the only thing they're making profit off of right now is reselling cell phones, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's like not sad. Even video game related. So yeah, their adaptation, their adaptation
yep.
to what the changing market has been to an influx of physical goods. So there's a huge surplus of t-shirts, Funko Pops, props, figurines. If you notice when you walk into a GameStop
right, because didn't they like
half the
partner with some
ThinkGeek.
Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah.
So like that's their adaptation. I think it's a little too late. Too little, too late, like you said. But we'll see what happens. I hope for all of the GameStop employees that are going to lose their jobs or risk or worried. I'm sorry that they have to deal with customers who come in and they like lambast or like harass or even think that it's funny. Because a lot of people love to go on the hate train and like go and make fun of GameStop, make fun of employees, and they actually
don't do any of that stuff.
Yeah, don't be that guy or girl.
The company's it's going to die, and it's sad for the employees. But it's from a simple, pure business standpoint, it's business.
Yep,
they fail to adapt. Bye. That's how it goes. You know what I mean? At some point, it's going to happen to everything. You know what I mean? Like at some point, someone's going to come up with a better idea than Amazon. Maybe it'll be some website or service that has VR shopping so that you can still buy things digitally, but you're in a virtual store.
Right.
And maybe Amazon doesn't adapt correctly. And you know, every company is susceptible to failure, to collapsing due to failure to adapt. Yeah. So.
Yeah, we'll see what happens.
We'll see what happens.
Yep.
Maybe they'll pull it together. Maybe they'll cut down their stores. They'll save them enough money to retrofit those stores that they keep, and maybe they can go forward with their new plan of having changing up their business model. But that's what it's going to take at this point: is change up your business model and lose a lot of money doing it. So, anyways, that's all I want to talk about with that. There's one single note that I had that I wanted to hit as well before we talk about our last news item, and that is just simply Biomutant, the game with the little furry foxes and hack and slash. Devil May Cry style, open world.
Action RPG.
It's still in development. Experiment 101 came out and said it.
Yay!
Even though we haven't heard anything from it, it was supposed to come out in 2019. It was announced in 2017, and it was supposed to come out in 2019. Never did. Everyone thought that it probably died in development hell, but they confirmed it is still in development, but they still don't have a release window.
There was an extensive gameplay footage shown at one of the E3s, either 18 or 19, and it did not look good. It looked fun. The concept was there. It was great.
Yeah.
But mechanically, it was like stuttery. The frame rate was bad. The animations weren't right. There was clipping, and it was just kind of, you could tell it was unpolished and unfinished. So it was definitely a prototype. So I'm rooting for Biomutant. It's been on my Amazon wish list since they announced it. It looks cool. The concept sounds great. So
yeah, it sounds like they're probably going to have to redo it for next gen. But that might be better for it.
Yeah, whatever.
Cool. Speaking of coronavirus,
right? We continue to enter the news with that.
Yeah, it is impacting the gaming industry in weird ways right now. So we've talked about how we expect the development or the manufacturing of the PlayStation and Xbox, but another weird way it's impacted the gaming and culture is PAX East is happening in a week, and Sony pulled out because of coronavirus fears.
Yeah. So traveling. People being infected?
I guess so, yeah. I mean, there are cases in the US, but there are so few. It's not like China. If PAX was happening in China, I'd be like, yeah, of course.
Right.
Cancel that. But the fact, I mean, it's happening in New York. Is that where
Boston.
PAX East? Boston. Okay, so it's happening on the East Coast, about as far away from China as you can get.
But it's an international airport.
Yeah.
And Sony's a Japanese company. So they are co-located, right there next to China.
I mean, they worded it in a way.
Yeah,
they worded it in regards to like we don't want to, with people coming in like demoing games and stuff like that, getting their hands on controllers and stuff like that.
Right.
That makes sense. No, there's no way you could control that much.
We talk about NetEase and Tencent and how much corporate money that they have in their fingers and all the tendrils. Anything that's being published or shown off that might be new or exciting at PAX could have representation from Tencent or NetEase.
And I read somewhere that I don't remember what the actual thing, but the coronavirus can actually live on surfaces for a lot longer.
Oh yeah,
than other viruses. So maybe that's the concern is like
yeah.
someone anywhere at any point in the manufacturing or handling could have touched it with the sickness and possibly it could, infect other people. So I get it. It's
just a mass conglomeration of people from a lot of different countries, all coming together. So it makes sense that you would.
PAX is not canceled, but several, not just Sony, but several people have pulled out amid coronavirus fears. I have to, I just have to wonder, like how much bigger can that get? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like E3 is just around the corner.
Right.
Who seems like no one's gotten a handle on the coronavirus. You know what I mean? It's like, are they going to cancel E3? I have no idea. I would hope not, but it is.
And there's the issue of the Chinese government too, and there's speculation that they're covering up how rampant it really is.
Yeah,
they're like not releasing the full picture of what's going on because there's tons and tons of reports of people reaching out from China and being squelched by the government, and people like being quarantined in their apartments forever, and like plants are shutting down, production, the Switch sales we talked about before are being reduced, and the risk of these next gen consoles and their manufacturing plants. Foxconn being the cell phone manufacturers, Apple has come out and said their supply is going to be cut. So I think it's a much bigger situation in China than what the numbers are showing.
Yeah, but the
China.
weird thing is, like, I would have expected at this point, if it was as bad and virulent as the tinfoil might suggest, wouldn't it have, at this point, it should have erupted in the West as well. You know what I mean? By that, I simply mean, like,
maybe they
if it says...
They got their foot down.
I don't know.
On it.
I would have expected it would have blown up by now. You know what I mean? And
maybe it's getting there.
Maybe. Exactly. It does have like an obscenely long incubation period. So,
could be around.
Who knows? But you might have it right now. That might be the little tickle in the back of your throat.
I traveled.
I might have it as well. You might have given it to me as well.
I traveled to Indiana, a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, I don't know. I just
went through Dulles International Airport.
It's like, I'm torn on both ways. I'm like, fear of the coronavirus and the quote panic that it causes is as dangerous, or if not more so, than the virus itself. So
I have to believe that someone at Sony, all of it. Did you look at the blog post of what they were going to show at PAX?
Yeah,
they were going to allow the crowds to play The Last of Us Part 2.
Yep.
Like, there's nothing but benefit. It's all benefit to be at PAX, to show off your games, to be that public presence. Right? Someone knows these numbers. Someone has done the math and is smart enough to know the risk outweighs the
reward,
benefit, and said, okay, coronavirus really is this thing. It can affect our company and our stuff and our products and our supply in this way. It can affect our game development by infecting employees, and we don't want to do it, right?
Sure.
It's like, I don't know if it's like just this irrational panic, but I think it's a calculated panic from Sony's perspective as a company.
And they are closer. There is more of an outbreak in Japan than there is. Like, it's already made its way to Japan, and there are several outbreaks happening there. So it's like, so it has spread to them, so they're probably more intimately familiar with it, as opposed to in the West, we're still kind of like, oh, there's a few cases, and everybody's freaking out about it. It's a weird, I'm like, why coronavirus?
I know.
Why do you have to exist?
Do you imagine the bad publicity, though, if coronavirus gets spread at PAX? Like, if it's there...
Well, at this point, it's gonna if it's going to happen, PAX is still happening. You know what I mean? So if it's gonna happen, it's gonna happen.
Yeah,
so
it's just it's crazy.
So why not shut down all of PAX if it's that scary? I don't know. There's so many facets to it, and I'm like, okay, well, Sony, you already pulled out of E3. You're pulling out of PAX. Like, and I get it. They're extraneous circumstances and they're very different. Like, they're doing it for different reasons.
Yeah.
But it just seems, I don't know, it's frustrating because people want, in a year when a console is going to come out, you want as much lead up as possible to your products, especially when you're releasing such high exclusive titles like Ghost of Tsushima and The Last of Us Part 2 before your even console drops. You know, it's just, you're right. It's calculated, obviously. Smarter people than you or I are making those decisions. But it just sucks. I'm like, it's so frustrating that
it takes
it's
the
even
wind
a
out
thing.
of the sails.
Yeah. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes for Sony. Part of me is just like, I'm just ready for them to announce the dang thing. You know what I mean? Like, announce it, show it off, unveil it. How much is it going to be? When's it coming out? Boom.
Backwards compatibility.
But at this point, it's because we're still, who knows how many months away from that reveal and that confirmation. Yeah. Speculation is going to run amok in regards to how is the coronavirus going to affect it. Yeah. It's going to be an interesting year as well.
We're going to see another Nintendo Wii situation. It's going to be out. Yeah. It's not going to be delayed, and it's just going to have like every store gets 2.
Get 200. Yeah. There's going to be like 200 units.
Store.
Yeah.
And there's going to be a line down the block, and 2 units got shipped to that store. And there's going to be riots and hatred.
Will you stand in line with me if we get ours pre-ordered?
Absolutely, yeah.
Nice. Awesome.
I'm ready to pre-order mine day 1. I've already allocated the money. It's fine.
I've been saving up my blood money.
Yep.
I'm pumping my veins.
We will stand in line with a camera. And we'll live Twitch stream our extreme experience of attacking the coronavirus.
Do you want to cut favorite things?
Do I want to cut our favorite thing?
Yeah.
Not really, you know.
Can we do it quick?
Sure.
Okay, cool.
Let's move on to podcast is our favorite.
And that fell apart so fast.
It didn't even go. There was no falling apart. Yeah, it just like ran off a cliff. Just like our show. It's great.
So let's move on to the next segment after news, which is doing this podcast is our favorite thing. Doing this podcast is our favorite thing. Favorite things is the next segment of our show after news. I can't even look you in the eye right now.
Why? Because you want to giggle?
I'm so ashamed.
Why? There's no shame.
I know. I'm just joking.
It makes you want to giggle a little bit. Then look me in the eye and giggle a little bit.
This is our time to share what we are excited about this week. Of anything that we are excited about. So what are you excited about this week?
I'm excited about tax returns.
Are you now?
Because mine's been done. Nice. I've already got the money. And we paid off all of our credit card debt from our house renovations.
Fantastic.
And I'm really excited about it. So that's my favorite thing.
Nice. We don't get a tax return in the traditional sense of like, we have paid you money. Oh, look, we get money back.
Right.
We get, basically what my wife does is because she's a 1099 employee, she sets aside X amount of money from every paycheck, and then has a just savings account where that money just sits.
Yep.
And so our tax return is if any money is left over after we pay what we owe the government, that is our tax return. Yeah. We had a tax return of almost exactly the amount that our son saved us.
Oh, okay.
So we calculated taxes correctly.
Yeah.
But my wife didn't account for the fact that we get a $2,000 credit from
you do.
having Gavin. So we basically have $2,000 that
That's perfect.
We had left over.
Because you had a hole last year.
Yeah, exactly. And guess what we put it to? Guess what? We took all that money and put it towards this last year's hole.
That's good for you guys. Because I remember that was kind of a thing.
Oh, it was a big thing.
I almost felt I did, and almost feel bad. I almost didn't bring it up because I felt bad.
Yeah,
because I knew you guys had a
it was. I mean, it was just a miscalculation of how it worked. Basically, is more or less what it boils down to. Is
that sucks? It's easy
my
to
wife
do.
Just didn't set aside. Yeah,
you know.
But we didn't make the same mistake this year. So, all right.
What's your favorite thing?
My favorite thing. My wife and I have pulled the trigger on getting a little Airbnb and getting away for a little bit in the middle of March. It'll be at the beginning of her spring break.
Yeah.
Her work spring break. So we're going to take a couple days. I already taken the time off. But we had been waffling about we wanted to go skiing, but we weren't sure which ski resort to go to. And so I said, well, we'll risk it going to the one that's further into Virginia. Because I'm like, part of me was like, why don't we go to the one in West Virginia where it's more likely to still be cold and be able to have good skiing in the middle of March.
Right.
I said, why don't we risk it and just go to the one that's closer? And if the skiing sucks or if they've closed the slopes because it's too warm, we'll do other things. There's the Blue Ridge Parkways nearby and all this. We're going to Wintergreen.
Okay.
So it's close enough that we can get to my parents' house where my son will be staying.
Yeah.
If there's an emergency, but it's also far enough that it feels like we're getting away.
How many nights?
2 nights.
Yeah.
So we're doing it as our 5-year anniversary celebration, but because our anniversary is in the summer, so our 5-year anniversary was this past summer, because it's in the summer, we said we'll just go to dinner this night, the actual night of our anniversary, and then we said we would go skiing in the winter. So we've just been putting it off till now. But part of it was we were putting it off because we were trying to wait for a time when Macy wouldn't have to actually take off work, because if she takes off work, that costs us more than it's worth. So she already has the time off because of spring break, so we're going to go. Yeah. We're going to go then. So we booked the Airbnb. We're going to go skiing. It's going to be awesome. I'm excited about it. So it's not something that's happened. Yep. But it's my favorite thing because I'm like, we finally committed to it. Yes. So it's my favorite thing.
That's awesome.
So yeah, that's that. Yay! Favorite things. Which moves us to our next segment, which is DLC.
Downloadable content.
Downloadable content is
I'm
what
Dan.
now? Me too.
You're Dan.
I'm Dan.
We're Dan. So we add a little extra bit.
Our content is loadable.
Hey.
Downloadable.
Just like DLC in a video game.
Woo!
It has nothing really to do with the mainstream. You don't need it. It's optional, and it totally costs the same price as this.
Yup. DLC for the day is a... Oh, so since we're talking about action RPGs, I wanted to talk about action movie stars.
Ooh.
So pick a cheesy action movie actor that you want to see in a video game, but here's the clincher: they can't already be in an existing video game. Okay. So that means no Keanu Reeves,
no Tom Cruise,
no Arnold Schwarzenegger, because his likeness appears as Terminator. Yeah. So pick an action movie star.
Shia LaBeouf.
Okay.
That's my
cheesy action movie star. Okay, I guess I can't do Harrison Ford because he's Han Solo.
Right.
Yeah, it's like hard to pick someone who hasn't already.
I picked one. I got it.
Is Stallone? Is there any Stallone appearances?
Rocky. There's video
games. Is there a Rocky video game? Dang it!
Yep.
While I'm thinking about it, what's your Shia LaBeouf game?
It's going to be a Duke Nukem.
He literally just face bombed. Shia LaBeouf is Duke. Okay, Danny just broke himself. Termite broke himself. He's broken.
It's so perfect. It's so bad. It's so bad. It is Duke Nukem with Shia LaBeouf.
That's it? Duke Nukem? Like a Duke Nukem style game?
No,
or?
It's a Duke Nukem game. With Shia LaBeouf is Duke Nukem. And he has those stupid, like, cheesy lines and, like, his whole, like, banter of him and Duke Nukem, which is like...
I can dig it, yeah.
Oh, that's too good. That's amazing.
That's a good one.
And so, hey, I'm gonna chew bubblegum.
All right, I got one.
And kick ass.
And maybe
put them all out of gum.
A game already exists with this character.
Oh my gosh,
person.
That was so perfect.
Nicolas Cage.
Ooh, is he in a video game?
I don't know.
See now.
I don't know. I feel like you probably are right, but if it counts, I'm gonna say Nicolas Cage in a Kojima directed horror game. That's what I want, because Nicolas Cage is just crazy and out there and just bonkers. And one of my favorite jokes in a television show is the show Community. There's a whole episode where a character goes to a class, and the entire class is Nicolas Cage a good actor or not? And they're given an assignment to watch 2 Nicolas Cage movies before the next class. And he says, the teacher warns them, he's like, only watch 2, don't watch them all. And of course, the character who we were following is just like on the autism spectrum, so of course he watches them all, and he comes back and he's like, he's like trying to explain. He's like, I don't know if he's good. And he starts having this mental breakdown and starts acting like Nicolas Cage in his mental breakdown. He goes, I'm a cat. I'm a sexy cat. Whoa! What? So I want that level of just madness in a performance but with Hideo Kojima directing it in a horror game.
It just sounded like Will
So
Ferrell
basically,
doing
I want Silent Hills, but with Nicolas Cage. And
everyone
directed by
listening
Kojima.
to our show, please do yourselves a favor and just Google Nicolas Cage in a video game, and there's like an entire list of Nicolas Cage face swapped with like Kratos and Master Chief, and
I love it.
It is a gem, and it was really funny.
I don't even know if you could count Nicolas Cage.
I barely heard what you said because I was
That's funny.
internalizing that.
That's great.
So
I don't even know if Nicolas Cage counts as an action movie star, but I feel like there are action movies with Nicolas Cage in them.
Yeah.
Like if National Treasure counts as an action movie, then I'm I'm digging it. Action adventure, maybe. Yeah. Ooh, another one. Brendan Fraser.
Boom. Oh, yeah.
Boom.
There you go.
Brendan Fraser.
Bedazzled.
I was thinking The Mummy, but...
Oh, right.
Yeah, Bedazzled's a good pull, too. I don't know what game he'd be in, though. I feel like just The Mummy. I want
Assassin's
The Mummy.
Creed.
I want The Mummy. Yes. Brendan Fraser as an assassin. Digging it.
That's perfect.
Okay, that's DLC for the day.
DLC.
Nice. Okay, so we are talking about ARPGs, action RPGs. And so that's where we'll start. What is an ARPG? How does it differ from other RPGs? And what are all of the subgenres?
I saw your Wikipedia definition, which we only know. That's what 80-Bit Podsmash does.
Totally. We just Google Wikipedia.
And it's a good, concise, like someone else has done it. Why reinvent the wheel, right?
Yeah.
Definition.
I dig it.
And then I saw a Giant Bomb article that also defined it.
Yeah.
So I figured you could read the Wikipedia definition, and I could read the Giant Bomb definition.
Sure.
And we'll see
where they meet.
And before we even start, defining what an action RPG is so ambiguous and so hard to do.
Yeah.
We've had this discussion prior to tonight in planning for this episode that we want to lay a foundation about like actually defining it before we go into the details.
Yep.
So let's try to define it by reading the two definitions and we can discuss. So you read your Wikipedia one.
Wikipedia's more or less boils down to it's an RPG without turn-based with real-time action is more or less what it is. But I'll read you what I've got.
Pretty simple, yeah.
Action role-playing game, real-time combat where player has direct control of character action as opposed to turn-based or menu-based while still having an emphasis on stats in order to determine relative strength of abilities. Often includes some kind of mission system or other RPG mechanics as well as combat styles from other action games. So, it's... and that's what's frustrating is...
It is.
RPG, first of all, it just stands for role-playing game. And as we talked about before this... It was defined in the 80s when the only role-playing game was D&D because there weren't video games yet, or at least they were so proto that it wasn't... They were in such a proto form that they weren't ubiquitous enough to start really having genres, much less having fully fleshed out, defined genres. So D&D was a game that just happened to have things like experience points and turn-based combat and skills and classes. So those those characteristics became ubiquitous with RPGs. But the word RPG just means role-playing game because it's emphasizing the role-playing.
Right.
It's not defining or describing the experience systems and complicated skill systems. It's talking about the role-playing.
Yeah.
When you get behind a character in a video game who is a character, that's role-playing.
Yeah.
So...
And that's ambiguous.
Literally any game could arguably be an RPG.
Yep.
We have talked about that on the podcast before. So people tend to define RPGs as games that have some kind of progression system, and
experience, stats, gear,
and
leveling
also
up.
Characters either that you customize or that exist. And that's
And marry that idea with the very, very early and Ready Player One kind of touched on the action adventure, like the point and click, interacting with the environment stuff. There you marry the two, right?
Yeah, exactly.
RPGs, action adventure games from the 80s.
Right. They had to actually
RPGs.
Create a different genre because, as we'll get to in the history, Zelda is often considered the game that blew up the idea of an action RPG, a real-time RPG.
Right.
But then they had to go back later and say, well, Zelda doesn't have a progression system and it doesn't have experience and
except for Zelda 2, but yes.
Except for Zelda 2. Exactly.
It gets more confusing.
So then they made, it's an action adventure game, but it's no, technically it's an RPG as well. One could make the argument, I would argue. Yeah. But for simplicity's sake, we will try to keep the RPG definition to the Dungeons and Dragons style progression system and role playing.
I'm going to read Giant Bomb.
Do it.
Okay. Action RPG combat systems combine the RPG mechanics of role-playing games with the direct, reflex-oriented, arcade-style, real-time combat systems of action games, instead of the more abstract battle systems of traditional RPGs, such as turn-based, conditional turn-based, tactical turn-based, pausable real-time or active-time battle. In action RPGs, the player has direct control over a character's movements and actions in combat, and an attack button, or several attack buttons, must be pressed to attack enemies in real time. Action RPGs most often use arcade-style hack-and-slash combat systems, though many also use fighting, brawling, or shooting mechanics. The latter variant is known as a role-playing shooter, a subgenre of action RPGs.
Okay.
So now of Destiny and Borderlands. And we talked about Kingdom Hearts and Nier Automata, and so that we just added.
And don't forget, and we'll talk about subgenres in a second. But I wanted to talk about the similarities between our two definitions.
Yeah.
The main points are reflexive, hack and slash, real time. Combat. So it's almost all, the definition of an ARPG is almost all a descriptor of just how the combat system works. Everything else more or less works like an RPG. And so, because of that definition,
it helps clarify some things.
It does help clarify things. It also, like you said, openly, broadly, like you said, Borderlands is technically an ARPG as well as, but then we get more specific and narrow. Looter shooter is what we call it. Dark Souls, technically in that definition falls as an ARPG, but we call them Soulsborns. We could do a deep dive on every single one of those subgenres. So we're going to talk about all of them, I guess, but like in a broad way. We're going to talk about them all in as much of broad strokes as possible. So as much as we call this a deep dive, it's like a medium dive because like, first of all, you have to say RPGs are such a huge category. So you can't really do a deep dive on RPGs because we've done JRPGs. Now we're doing ARPGs. So we've got to dive a little bit deeper than the RPG level. And then so we're in the action level, but like you could go way deeper and narrower, but it would take 5 episodes to do it. So, we're going to try to talk as succinctly, but also as thoroughly as we can on each of the subgenres. So the major subgenres in the ARPG category are the, as aforementioned, hack and slash style RPGs. So Nier Automata. Oh gosh, give me more examples.
Kingdom Hearts.
Oh, Kingdom Hearts. Yeah, Biomutant will probably be one of these. Again, one could make an argument that things like Devil May Cry, but then again, you don't level up or have complicated skills, but you do get more skills and abilities through your weapons that you get. But how different is that from Zelda giving you more abilities and capabilities through the weapons? So again, one could argue that Zelda and Devil May Cry are hack and slash style ARPGs. Right. There's some wiggle room there.
Maybe it'll help clarify some things if we look at games that are clearly RPGs that don't fall into that.
Yes, exactly. So
Pokemon.
The ones that are more, Pokemon, Final
Fantasy. Very
Fantasy.
much not an action RPG.
Yeah.
But Final Fantasy 15 bridges that gap. So you can't even say all of Final Fantasy because Final Fantasy 15 you have to mash square, which is very real time.
Yeah. Tactics games like Final Fantasy Tactics or Advanced Wars.
Ogre Battle.
One could even argue those aren't RPGs, but maybe they are. I don't know. See,
they are. They're tactical RPGs, which is a subgenre of RPG.
Some of the other subgenres that are a little bit more clear, I would say the quintessential ARPG when I think of ARPGs are the top-down isometric, quote-unquote isometric, because as you had pointed out in an earlier episode, isometric specifically meant 2D images that are meant to look 3D. But they've become, that word has expanded its definition to just refer to the top-down style in general. So top-down RPGs, point and click, like Diablo is the one that most often comes to mind as an ARPG. Torchlight,
Path of Exile,
those are all
Grim
ARPGs.
Dawn.
Yeah, in fact, that's the term I think that's most ubiquitous. And then the Souls games, I think, are the other big category. Soulsborne, Dark Souls, Bloodborne,
and the most recent 2 entries in the Assassin's
Sekiro.
Creed. Oh yeah, Sekiro. Assassin's Creed Origins and Odyssey both have equipment systems and level up and damage and numbers added to them. But it was a very action game before that, so that's a perfect example of action.
Exactly. RPG So those are the ones we're going to zoom in on. Obviously, we could talk about first-person shooters, the quote looter shooter or role-playing FPS, FPS, whatever.
Division, Destiny, Borderlands,
Anthem. We could talk about all of those. Mass Effect. We could talk about all of those, but we're not going to. We'll say that as we're going to focus mostly on Souls games, hack and slash, and isometric.
All right.
Or those are the subgenres we're going to try to mostly talk about tonight. History! As always with these deep dives, we like to dig in a little bit into the history and see where they come from.
And Giant Bomb provided in that same article, which I'll have to link off because I'm quoting it so much, and the problem is it's a community-based, so I don't have an author to quote.
Oh, yeah.
It kind of stinks because a bunch of people added to it. So anyway, they say an action RPG genre originated in Japan in the early 80s as a fusion of game design elements from both Japanese arcade action games, which emphasized fast-paced movement and direct reflex-oriented real-time combat, such as hack and slash and shooting, and traditional RPGs, which emphasized the statistical RPG elements and slower-paced, abstract, turn-based combat. the action RPG genre was largely pioneered by these following games during the early 80s. I'm not going to list all of them. There's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I've never even heard of half of these stuff.
I know, yeah.
I'm trying to figure out, in 1983, there was Nihon Falcom's Yoshiokiya, created Paranorma Toe. And then in 1984, there was Dragon Slayer.
Panorama Toe.
Thank you, Panorama Toe. Mm-hmm. There you go. In 1984, we had Babylonian Castle Saga, Dragon Buster, Courageous Perseus. I don't know any of this stuff. And if you guys do, please let us know. So anyway, now we're going to go to something you guys should all know. Nintendo's Shigeru Miyamoto adapted elements from the Tower of Draga, Hydelide, and Dragon Buster in creating The Legend of Zelda in 1986. It was responsible for popularizing the action RPG genre since the late 80s, influencing the likes of Times of Lore, Dragon Wars, Crystalis, Bad Blood, and in the Ultima games from Ultima 6 onward, Soul Blazer, Mana, Fable, The Witcher, and Souls. Ironically, since the early 2000s, most of the Zelda games have been reclassified as action adventures rather than action RPGs due to their general lack of statistical RPG elements, with the exception of Zelda 2. So
yeah, so
it's a lot to unpack.
It's so much to unpack.
Yeah.
Number one, it's like, as we saw, it was a genre that was being experimented with all throughout the 80s, but became popularized by Zelda. Ironically, Zelda got recategorized out of the ARPG genre because of its lack of RPG elements.
Yeah, yes.
But again, what is an RPG?
Right.
It's a circle we could go around all night. So, but yes, they were reclassified as action adventure games, the franchise. But Zelda would serve as an inspiration for the ARPG genre moving forward.
And in typical Penguin Termite 8-bit Podsmash fashion, I like to take these conversations and personalize them into our own experiences and history. Mm-hmm. And so for me, my history with action RPGs, some of the first ones I've ever played or even seen were games like Secret of Evermore for Super Nintendo. Mm-hmm. Have you messed with Secret of Mana or Secret of Evermore?
No, but I see them.
Yeah,
I see them in lists of
very real
games.
time,
yeah.
and you have a health bar, and you have gear and equipment, and you do damage numbers to enemies, and it's like you upgrade your character progression system, statistical RPG elements.
Yeah.
They're all there, but it's a top down, so it kind of looks like Chrono Trigger, like Final Fantasy VI. Those are like my first action RPGs, in my history. I don't know. What do you think is your first?
I would say nothing. I mean, I had probably played action RPGs, quote unquote action RPGs at some point, but most of my action gaming was like real time action gaming was through action adventure games or fighting games up to that point, or first person shooters, and then all my RPGs were mostly like games that you would identifiably say RPGs were things like Pokemon. Final Fantasy that had turn-based systems. Yeah. So for me, the first time I really got an experience of marrying the two, if you will, was Diablo 2.
Oh, okay. Wow.
I would say,
one?
Again, I might be able to dig deep and find a game that I was like, oh, this is my first ARPG. But again, because the genre is so not concrete.
Gray area.
So gray, yeah. Because it's such a gray genre, it's hard to really say for sure. So I would say the one that is identifiably and agreeably an ARPG was Diablo 2. I didn't really play enough Diablo 1, if at all.
Okay.
So my first one was Diablo 2. Around middle school, it was after my Warcraft 3 days. And
wow, you played Diablo 2 after Warcraft 3?
Yeah, Warcraft 3 for me came
late.
first. I was very late into the Diablo 2 game, but once I got it, it got its hooks in me good. And pretty much played Diablo 2. Diablo 2 is the game that I was playing pretty much in the lead up to it. It was the game that prepped me for World of Warcraft.
Wow.
You could like, it really like, I was like getting the idea of like going after the loot chase and everything, and working together with people and killing bosses and raiding the same boss over and over again. All that was instilled in me by Diablo 2 before I even picked up WoW. So making the transition into WoW was even easier because of that. And
you never dabbled in any of the Baldur's Gate games? Like
Baldur's Gate 2,
Icewind Dale,
or
Neverwinter Nights?
I definitely played Dark Alliance.
Okay.
Which is that Baldur's Gate?
I don't remember which one it is.
I think it's its own game, like its own spin-off, so Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance. I mean, I played Gauntlet, which is kind of an ARPG. I guess it's definitely an ARPG. Yeah, so maybe Gauntlet Legends and Gauntlet Dark Legacy. Yeah. Probably before. Yeah, technically those before. I think it's probably why I like Diablo so much, is because it reminded me of Gauntlet, and I grew up playing Gauntlet, so those are mine.
All historical context.
Yeah.
It's all like action RPGs and how they've evolved. I mean, you look
it's
at
nuts.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's
cool. But it's so interesting that even how different those subgenres are, they still influence one another. Dark Souls pulls a lot from, especially early Diablo.
Mm-hmm.
So does Borderlands.
Yep.
So does Destiny. You know what I mean? And then Diablo, in turn, as it would have further entries, would then pull from those games for inspiration. Like Diablo 4 is supposed to have shared world elements like Destiny. They just specifically said like Destiny. So, and shared world events and stuff like that. And so it's crazy how those all
I'm going to
tie
use
and influence
the
each other.
Battle Royale genre as an example of what we're seeing here. But it looks like in the history of gaming, a new thing comes out. So Battle Royale was introduced.
Yeah.
Now we're going to start seeing new games with Battle Royale elements as opposed to being defined. Like Apex Legends is undoubtedly
a Battle Royale
game.
Uh-huh.
But then a DLC could come out with Borderlands 3 that has Battle Royale elements. Or like Fortnite. It has Battle Royale elements. It also has build-based elements and things. And so like you see these new genres come out and they're just kind of adopted as a subgenre later.
And then there's, and
that's what happened to RPG.
And there's there's elemental parts where it's like, there are games that are definably action-adventure games that have a little bit of RPG elements in it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's a genre. The RPG has now been adopted as an adverb to, or an adjective, adjective to an action game.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, cool. What are your personal favorite ARPGs? Not just the ones you grew up with, but your favorites.
Fallout 4.
Oh, yeah?
The Witcher 3.
Oh, gosh.
Torchlight. Diablo 1 and 2. Kingdom Hearts 1, 2, and 3. And that does not include the list I just gave from my history, which is Secret of Evermore, Secret of Mana. Like, those games were awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, I would... Oh, gosh. There's so many good ones. Darksiders, of course, Diablo, the whole Diablo franchise. I've loved every game I've played in the Diablo franchise, which makes me so sad as to how Blizzard's current state of things. One of my greatest laments. Darksiders, Gauntlet, of course.
Oh yeah, you gotta have Gauntlet.
Yeah, gotta have Gauntlet in there, especially the ones that do have like a clear progression system with leveling up and whatnot and collecting items. So Gauntlet 64 and Gauntlet Dark Legacy. There's so many. This is one of my favorite all-time genres, and I love hack and slash games too. So even games that don't necessarily have huge RPG elements like Devil May Cry and Bayonetta, like they're RPG enough, at least in regards to the role-playing aspects of it, like not so much the experience and leveling up and loot and whatnot, but the role-playing elements of them, of like, oh, I love Dante as a character, and I love this exploration and interaction with the world. So good.
Did you ever play Onimusha?
There's so many. Torchlight, again, like you had that on your list as well. Torchlight 2 is one of my favorite Diablo clones. Diablo alternatives. Although I am experimenting, I've been going through a kick and I've been experimenting, so I can't say they're my favorites yet, but I've been experimenting with Path of Exile and Grim Dawn. And there's a new one that just came out, which is part of the reason why this topic is relevant, is because there's an explosion of ARPGs recently, and they're all over the place, the isometric ones at least. Yeah. And it's called Volcen. I don't know how to pronounce it. It's Wolcen. Just came out of 4 years of early access on Steam. Yeah. So it's been in development for like 7 years. But it just came out, and it's supposedly really good, but really buggy right now. So it's like...
And is it Path of Exile 2?
Path of Exile 2, was announced. And it's going to be kind of like it's one of those weird... not sequels, actual sequels, where it's like, again, you don't have to pay for it, so it's just be like a free upgrade for everybody. Yeah. But that's
Obsidian, right?
It's Grinding Gear Games makes it, so it's an independent developer, although they are owned.
Pillars of Eternity? Is that Obsidian?
Pillars of Eternity is Obsidian, but that's more like a Baldur's Gate.
Right. And there's Baldur's Gate 3 coming.
Baldur's Gate 3 is coming. Torchlight 3 is coming. It was originally Torchlight Frontiers and was supposed to be an MMO, like an isometric top-down MMO, which is actually an interesting concept, but a lot of people didn't like that idea because MMOs are kind of falling out of the darling spot. So they recently kind of went into development hell for a little while, and then they recently came out and said, we're scrapping the MMO. It's going to be officially Torchlight 3. So that's coming out. So they're exploding. The genre is just
everywhere.
It's everywhere. It's blown up. So yeah, it's
Outer Worlds.
It's hard for me
You're playing that now, right?
I'm playing Outer Worlds. It's hard for me to narrow down a favorite. The only one, it's easier for me to say ones that I haven't gotten into, and the only subgenre that I really haven't gotten into is the Soulsborne style, and the closest I've gotten was Jedi Fallen Order, which I adored.
Oh, yeah, Jedi Fallen Order was amazing.
Total ARPG, and totally in that, like, it's definitely, it's got that Souls flavor to it, so, whew! Alright, as always, deep dives, we will talk about next innovations and what you think what innovations do you think have been most revolutionary to the genre and consequently to gaming in general, to what has influenced gaming that's come directly from the ARPG genre? I got one. Loot. Loot. Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. There was loot and stuff in RPGs before. I mean, going back to, what's it called? Dungeons and Dragons, even before it was a video game
equipment,
thing. Right, yeah, and rare, stuff like that. Yep. But the idea of just a game where loot is being thrown at you, and it does crazy, explodey things, that's all from Diablo, really, Diablo 2 specifically, and just getting loot that just makes your character crazy powerful, and that power fantasy that all comes from... And
where you have like a max level, so you can't progress anymore, right? Your max level, the only thing you can do is customize your gear.
Yeah, loot as a form of progression, because before it was always just like, there were more stat sticks in RPGs before that. Yeah. Like, here is just the natural, now you have a stronger thing. And there was always some kind of cost benefit. You were almost always losing something. And at the very least, there was some kind of cost associated with it. You had to buy it through, Final Fantasies, I remember, it wasn't like things just dropped. Sometimes they did. But mostly it was like, new spells and abilities and materia or whatever summons will drop. That was your rewards. The sword you just bought at the local vendor.
Right.
And ARPGs made it where it's like, you killed that boss, you get a crazy powerful sword, and it shoots lightning out of its hilt, and blarg. That comes right from Diablo, and now it's in every loot games are just...
My answer to this innovation question is actually the antithesis to that, where the player's skill is emphasized in an RPG. Because in traditional RPGs, turn-based combat, you can just go grind enemies until you're over-leveled and erase the bosses like they're nothing, because you put more time into it. Then you take... The epitome of that is the Soulsborne genre, which we have to all the Dark Souls games and Bloodborne, where the character, you, like the player, has to get better, regardless of the gear that you're wearing. Yeah. You have to be better at the game with your reaction time, blocking, pattern recognition, and like actual action.
Yep. They married that with the strategy, because previously it was turn-based RPGs. It's all about strategy, strategizing what moves you do next.
Right.
And then also... strategizing how you build out your skills and what skills you choose and what gear you do to support those skills. And so there's a level of strategy and knowledge that goes into the skill of a turn-based RPG. They married that with the twitch reaction time of first-person shooters and...
Arcade action,
exactly. So now to be a skilled ARPG player, you have to, have enough knowledge to make a successfully powerful character in the first place, and have the twitch reaction times to not die when the rubber meets the road.
And then we had a whole episode about challenge runs, specifically. So then now we're seeing with the advent of Twitch streaming and stuff, like people not doing one of those two things, like erasing one of the two. So let's not do the knowledge part, right? So where we have a vanilla character, right? It's just crappy equipment, but I'm going to be really, really good at Twitch reaction time and like how to dodge, and looking at enemy pattern recognitions, and I'm going to beat this boss that's super hard at level 1 with no gear. Like, that's a challenge run. Or doing the opposite, where you play on a DDR pad, or use a treadmill as a controller.
I saw someone beat Dark Souls with the bongo drums from
where it's like you completely erase. GameCube.
Donkey Kong. The Donkey Kong bongo drum. So funny.
And so like they use the full knowledge of how to build a character and strategize their abilities and gear and equipment, the stuff that doesn't require the twitch, and then just make it super difficult. So it's interesting how you can do both, and I think that is very unique to action RPGs.
Yeah, I think it was the natural progression, I think, of people wanting that, because you can set an ARPG in any world, but the whole idea of world building, they could then make it more appealing to a wider audience. I think that's really the innovation that ARPGs brought to the table. Was RPGs are great and wonderful, and I love them, don't get me wrong, but the RPGs that we know that are pure RPG, they're niche, they're very niche. Even a franchise as widely beloved as Final Fantasy, it's like it can be a game that can be hard to get into, especially for a newcomer.
Up until Final Fantasy VII, it was very niche.
But now with the ARPGs, it was like these are more accessible. So people, it's clearly it filled a gap where it's like people want this level of intricate world building and intricate gameplay, but they want the excitement. They want the barrier of entry of having all that complicated knowledge and strategy. Take that away and get more into, and there's enough depth in that for people who want that still to get excited about it. But for the people who just want to have that adrenaline rush, like that barrier of entry is now much, much lower.
Yeah,
which is
and
good.
I think I'm racking my brain right now as an example of what you're talking about, and I'm thinking of the Mass Effect series has an amazing mainstream appeal.
Yeah.
And versus like a super niche Japanese RPG like the Tales series, like Tales of Berseria or Tales of Exilia.
Or even a game like Eve, which is a total RPG, but it's like numbers, strategy, money.
Yeah.
Whereas and it's still a sprawling sci-fi world with ships and planets and the galaxy at stake. But the storytelling prowess, for one, with BioWare, and exactly that action emphasis made that much more broadly.
Yeah, Mass Effect 2
appealing.
and 3 were like shooters versus 1, which was very RPG.
Yeah, yeah. Awesome. What do you think are pros and cons of ARPGs? We've talked a lot about pros, so normally this comes down to what do you think are some of the cons of
The cons
ARPGs?
would be the jack of all trades, master of none kind of paradigm is applied to these, because they're trying to appeal to both, and then you end up with games that are divisive, like the Soulsborne games. Like, we don't play them because they're so freaking difficult, because the action difficulty is so hard. Sekiro, Shadow Die Twice, yeah. Love the idea. Like, I read an article about what that game is. You have one weapon, it's like your arm, it's a prosthetic, and like you augment it with different stuff, and it affects how you traverse the environment with like hook shots and stuff, but it also affects combat. Sounds awesome and super appealing, but the combat is so hard, like Dark Souls or Bloodborne, that I just like I don't want to do that. But
I don't want to put myself through that.
A game that circumvented that was Jedi Fallen Order, where you could set the difficulty down and you could just do the whole thing, still get the platinum trophy, and not feel like you're missing out on anything, and have a blast. So that's kind of a con of the action RPG.
Yeah, I would
genre.
say exactly. And what you know, to piggyback on what you're describing is like they have, because the genre in general appeals to such a broad audience. It's like that as a developer, you're like, I want to make an ARPG. You have the choice. Do I want to try to reach and make it as enjoyable by as many people as possible, or do I want to narrow in on the specific group of people who want this specific thing? It's so hard as a player to watch a game. Like, when I first saw the trailers for Sekiro, when it was announced like 3 years ago, I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. This looks like such a fun game. Only to find out that it had the difficulty curve of the Souls games, which immediately turned me off. And that's so depressing as a player to see a game advertised and want to play it. And if I had not, been paying attention to it and had just bought it, that it's happened to me enough times where I've bought a game that I thought looked really fun and interesting, and almost always they're ARPGs, only to play it and then be disappointed about, like, this is not the gameplay I want. And that's a huge con of the genre, because they can always, because of that action, they're very easily marketed, and sometimes that easy marketing can be deceptive, not intentionally so, but because the game is trying to be something that it's not what you want. And that, I think, that also applies to even games that I love and play. It's like, sometimes, like, ARPGs are a genre that's so easy to just miss the mark on, where it's like, and my best example of that is Anthem, where it's like, this game has so many good ideas, but they just don't know how to implement them correctly and well, and they don't know, they miss the game, like, they miss that they have a good gameplay loop, but that gameplay loop is not applied to a greater thing to pursue. And, again, action RPGs are all about the power fantasy and then having things to do with that power fantasy. You know what I mean? So even the repetitive ones like Diablo and Borderlands, like, you're just doing the same things over and over again to get that perfect piece of gear. But the excitement that you get, that adrenaline rush that you get when your build just comes together and you just mow through enemies.
That's a pro.
That is such a good, exactly. That's a pro. And so many ARPGs do that well. But again, even the good ones, like, I can only play, if and when I go through my Diablo 3 cycles, I usually only play it a couple hours every season. I get to a max level, I perfect a build, and then once I hit that build and I'm like, oh, sweet, it's working the way I want it to, I almost immediately get bored with it. Same with Borderlands. As soon as I get the right perfect pieces of gear and my build working, I run a thing, and I'm like, sweet, look how powerful I am. Okay, I'm bored. It's a genre that is very it's very easy to sort of like see through it once you get.
And I'm thinking of Destiny 1 because when it was first announced and touted as like a Halo kind of game, I was in, man. This is going to be a super deep, long campaign. I got the game day one, paid $60 for it, and got to max level in like 2 sessions. And then it was all just end game grind. And I was like, doing the same stuff over and over again, like doing patrols. And there was only like 4 planets that had 1 mission on each thing. And I was just like, what is this? Of course, it was one of the very first kind of open, what do you call it? What did you say earlier? It was
shared world
experiences, right? And like MMO hybrid with
MMO light is one of the other terms. And I prefer shared world, and they do too, because it's like there's, and that's a running theme is like these games often lend themselves very well to the live service model, the games as a service,
which
or even
to make money,
or even the MMO model.
Yep.
But all of those rely on having a good steady stream of new content to keep players engaged. And that can be a really good thing. That can be a really well implemented thing. I cannot tell you how long I played World of Warcraft on that exact hook, which was there's a new story, there's a new thing to do, there's a new thing to seek after, and there's new content, a new world, new enemies, new. That can be really well implemented. It can also get really poorly implemented, and when players are in it, they will pick apart every single thing that's wrong with every single new thing. And what have you not fixed yet? You have not fixed this yet. You have not fixed this very specific thing that I have a problem with. Because again, they are multiplayer by nature, so they're meant to be interactive. And then there's the like Anthem made this mistake too, where it's like you're selling the game on this very intricate single player story, but then you're forcing us to play with other people. Do you want me to pay attention to what my friends are saying, or do you want me to pay attention to what your characters are saying? And it's like, are you trying to be a multiplayer game, or are you trying to be a single player game? And ARPGs make that mistake. Not just Anthem. Anthem was just the worst of it, but they make that mistake all the time. Destiny has the same problem.
Sounds like all of our cons that we've discussed so far are almost relegated to multiplayer. Can we think of any cons for single player action RPGs?
Well, like I said, the loot based repetitive gameplay, like just seeking after that build, I would say the con becomes as soon as you reach that build and get bored with it. Some people don't. It is a very niche thing though, and not everybody likes it. So some people are like, I played through Diablo once and it was okay. It was an okay game, but it's like, oh, but you're missing out what makes Diablo great, the loot chase and leveling up multiple characters and trying out multiple builds. It's like some people just don't want that. So it's like the games can have broad appeal, but then very niche lasting appeal. So I don't know, they're fun. It's fun. I would say that's the other downside, I think, is that as much as it's like, on the one hand, they're fun. On the other hand, it's like, they're just fun sometimes. You know what I mean?
How much of a commitment, how much work?
They can be very shallow. Sometimes they can be very deep and intricate and awesome games. But
then the commitment level goes up so high that it's almost overwhelming and daunting.
And then sometimes they even lack that depth. And in which case, it's like, okay, well, that was a fun game to play once. And they can be very...
I've heard that's the case with Outer Worlds. Yeah, I don't know yet because I haven't played it.
Which is frustrating, because that platinum trophy makes you play through it multiple times. I have heard you can play through the game without killing anybody though. So part of me wants
apparently
to.
You can do some non-violent stuff. Yeah.
Part of me would be like, as a challenge run, maybe pick it up a year after I beat it and say, okay, now I want to try to do it. Yeah, completely pacifist style. Okay, what do you want to see? Our last question, where we'll end, is what do you want to see from ARPGs going forward?
I want more single player, well done, non-loot chasing, non-open world, shared world experience games. I hope that's what they do. I think the success of Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order is kind of it's not a wake-up call, but it's definitely opened some eyes, I imagine, to some higher bigwig corporations that are like, oh, we can do these and make money. The backlash of microtransactions, games like Fallout 76 that are super multiplayer oriented that have just been bombed and canned, and like negative feedback. I think all of those things kind of shape the future of what action RPGs can be. And then you have like the success of the Division 2 right out the gate, like almost. I mean, there were some hiccups, but then you have the failure of Anthem. So like you have all this stuff that has happened recently that I think are shaping the action RPG genre, and I'm all for all of these things that have happened. And I'm excited about the future of what we're going to see. Games like Biomutant, and then on next gen with Godfall coming. That sounds really cool and fun, something different. It's like a melee sort of like Knights, almost inspired by Sanderson, Archive.
Stormlight Archive.
Stormlight Archives. That kind of stuff. So I hope they continue to innovate in a way that gets over the cons that we just discussed, because those cons are almost an
growing pains,
infancy or like a adolescence of the action RPG genre's potential. And so I think once we get over that hump, that's what next gen's probably going to be awesome.
Yeah, I would say what I want to see going forward, I'll speak of what I want to see less of first. What I want to see less of is I want to see less ARPGs, because I feel like they lend themselves so much to this problem. Less half-baked ARPGs that come out right out of the gate. And what I mean by that is either content is cut because it's meant to be spread out over time, or they're just not ready. And Anthem's a great example of that, where it's like Destiny 2 was, and Destiny 1, both were, when they first came out, it's like, there's not enough to do. This game is half, but it's like, stop relying on goodwill to then try to improve the game at a later date. Stop releasing a game when it's not done, and just...
Fallout 76 probably fell in the same camp.
Fallout 76 is exactly in the same camp. Stop relying on...
Borderlands 3 as well.
Borderlands 3, yeah, even Borderlands 3, even it's the No Man's Sky paradigm.
Yeah.
Like stop releasing a game that sucks just to get it out of the gate, and then rely on the goodwill of your existing player base to tide you over until you can fix the game.
Yep.
Just fix the game, or release the game
when it's ready.
Or stop screwing up from the start. You know what I mean? And there's so many examples of this. Many of them I've touched on before, that I don't even want to get into it now. But, we've sort of briefly mentioned many of those examples, and it's like, just stop doing it.
Yeah.
Like, I know it's hard to say because, again, we are armchair game designers.
Yep.
So it's hard. Just get it right from the beginning. Like, yes, I understand that's way more of a complicated task. Yeah. But, like, you have to start, again, the biggest thing is, like, stop trying to innovate so much that you ignore what has worked in the past. I think that's a common theme I've seen with ARPGs over the last, 5 years. Again, Anthem exemplified it by saying, don't even mention Destiny. It's like, no, take what works in Destiny and marry it to what's working with your game. Don't mention Diablo. Like, no, learn from what Diablo did well. Borderlands 3, as much as I love the game, could have stood to have learned from what has been emerging in the looter shooter genre since for the last 5 years. So I want to see less of that. I want to see more creativity, and I've mentioned this before too. I want to see more creativity in how the action of the game works. And by that, I mean, whether it's weapons and just more creative weapon ideas, more creative loot ideas, or whether it's more creative spells, abilities. I just want to see, the action RPG is such an imaginative and can be such an imaginative genre because it's so broad. You can do sci-fi, you can do horror, you can do gothic, you can do fantasy, you can do it all. You could do The Division, grounded, realistic shooter, but just, I want to see more creativity. I want it to expand my imagination and take me somewhere I haven't been before. Let me do something. I don't want to cast the same fireball over. I mentioned this in our episode about weapons. Yeah. I don't want to shoot the same shotgun over and over again. I don't want to cast the same fireball spell over and over again. I don't want to slash with the same sword moves over and over again in every video game I play.
Oh, this works. I'm just going to keep doing it.
Yeah, make it so that when my sword hits something, the sword splits into 15 swords, and those swords then, needle everybody nearby them. I want cool, speculative abilities, because I want the power fantasy to also be an imaginative, creative one.
Yeah.
And then, because that's what ARPGs are all about, is the power fantasy. So expand on that and make it something compelling, so that when I look at the game, I'm like, I want to buy that because I want to do that thing.
Yep. I think you're going to love Cyberpunk.
Yeah.
I think everything you just described is what
I want to shoot a gun that turns a person into a werewolf, and then that werewolf fights for me for 30 seconds, then I have to go kill the werewolf. Whatever. And I think I do want to see a game that can really nail that live service and the expanding ongoing story, because I think that idea is a cool one. It just hasn't been done well for me since my WoW days. And I don't want to go back to WoW because Blizzard has ruined everything for me, and WoW itself lost its creative spark 5 expansions ago. Yeah. But it's left a hole in my. I want a game that has an ongoing developing story that I can, it's being a part of something, an evolving world. I still want that. I still crave that.
Yeah.
But I haven't really landed on a game. I wanted that to be Borderlands. I wanted that to be Anthem. I wanted that to be Destiny. And every single one of those disappointed me in some way or another. Whether it's the gaps between the content, the barriers of cost for the content, that was Destiny. It just cost too much to get involved in that world. Or whether it was just a poorly implemented game like Anthem. It's like, I still want a game where I feel like the world itself is getting more and more dangerous, and there's another threat around the corner, and I have to get stronger and more powerful to beat it. Like, I like that, and I want that, and I want a developing story that happens over time. Just haven't found a game since early WoW that has.
I think we are hopeful for because of the growing pains for next gen to get that exact type of experience.
Yep,
it's probably
exactly.
coming.
I will still hold out hope for it, and I will still probably buy many games as a result of chasing that. And I'm hoping Godfalls gets it right. But I always
Cyberpunk has very much potential to be that.
I hope so.
If it's anything like The Witcher 3, but evolved,
I still need to do The Witcher.
Yep.
I want, like, the one thing that I had a problem with The Witcher, the thing that was the most, other than the massiveness of it, was the combat. It was so clunky. And it was serviceable. I enjoyed it enough, but I'm hoping that first-person perspective
Did you play it on
looks
PlayStation?
good. No, I played it on PC.
Okay.
But
there's some option, apparently, in the options menu that changes the combat feel to a more action-oriented one versus what the defaults are. I haven't experienced it myself. I just heard about it. And someone else had the exact same complaint on a podcast. Sacred Symbols, Colin Moriarty, and Chris Raygun. Chris Raygun had the same complaint about combat. And apparently there's just this thing in the options. You switch it, and it's amazing.
Well, the game is literally like $14 right now, the complete game. So maybe I consider it. But I want to replay the whole entire game.
I know.
But what I'm hoping with Cyberpunk is that it has all of that like rich, giant world building of The Witcher, but with a combat system that I can get behind a little bit more. Yeah. Because I do enjoy a good first-person
with all
shooter.
the bioengineering kind of chips and augments, I think there's a lot of potential for a lot of creativity. And what you're explaining about actions, abilities, weapons, and like all the different things you'll be able to do. Yeah, it'll be fun. I'm excited about Cyberpunk.
Yeah, it'll be fun. Okay. Control. Just throwing it out there. ARPG.
Yeah, sure is.
Because you level up and get skills too. All right, cool. Just wanted to throw that one out there as like a random statement. I think that's it. I think that's our conversation. Did you have anything else? Yeah. Did you have anything else you wanted to add?
Nope.
It's too big. It's too big of a genre. There's too much to talk about.
Yeah.
So if you feel like we didn't go too deep or deep enough, or if we didn't mention a game you love, then feel free to let us know. And what are your thoughts on ARPGs in general? Do you like them? Do you hate them? Which are your favorites? What did you grow up playing? Or do you just hate them and avoid them because they're the worst and you prefer pure RPGs because you're an elitist like that? No, I'm kidding. It's cool. If you don't like them, you don't like them. That's fine.
You know what? Madden players out there, don't scoff because your Madden games are action RPGs.
Totally action RPGs, which...
So is FIFA and so is NHL and
but it's
basketball.
True. Yep. Cool. All right. Then let us know your thoughts. Termite, where can they engage with us?
You can find us starting on social media platforms. That's probably your easiest barrier of entry. Go to Facebook, Instagram, Reddit, or Twitter and add us at 80-bit Podsmash, 80-bit Podsmash. No uppercases, lowercases, or hyphens or funny business. You can find us on other podcasting services starting at 80bitpodsmash.com. It's our landing website with links to Google Play, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Stitcher, and any other platform you would like via our RSS feed that's available to you. You can also find us live streaming every single Wednesday evening at twitch.tv/80bitpodsmash. And you can find our Discord server in the show notes on Facebook and on the show notes on our website, 80bitpodsmash.com.
Boom. Look forward to those live streams. They're fun.
They are.
I think I've got the next week, don't I?
So if we're going back and forth, but we're kind of who's available right now.
Yeah, I don't know when to stream next. But they will know what I'm going to stream next because of the way things air.
So already been over with when it airs.
So the thing that they can look forward to is next week's episode, where what we have down is game rants.
Ooh, things we hate about games.
We're going to talk about common irritants is how I subtitled it. So things that bug us about games. So
a vexing episode.
We will rant the whole time. Complain. So we're going to get it all off our chest. Just whine and complain. So people are going to hate that episode. They're going to be like, gosh, I hate when they complain all the time.
Yeah, and then go back to our entitled gamer episode. Compares to that.
All right, common irritants in games. You have a lot to look forward to next week.
See you next week.